look back at the weekend's soccer with John Giles and Liam Brady. And, of course, Liverpool play tonight. They're a long, long way clear and almost certain to win the Premier League. But there are still fascinating battles, not least to avoid relegation at one end of the table and to qualify for the Champions League at the other end of the table. And there is the continuing controversy about VAR or VAR, Video Assistant Referee. It will not go away. Just let me talk to you first, John. We watched the very important match for both clubs, Chelsea versus Spurs, on Saturday lunchtime at Stamford Bridge. In the end, a very, very good win, I thought, for Chelsea. But the game also had an incident involving VAR, which we'll come to. First of all, can I put it to you, John, that Jose Mourinho, the way he set his team up, the way they played, the way he looked on the bench, all of that stuff, bit of mind games with Frank before the game. He's a shadow, it seems to me, of his former self.
Well, I think he's running to what he always has been. And when things go against him, he turns very, very badly in a negative way. And I thought he did it last week. For example, when he subbed Dele Alli in the Champions League match.
Yeah.
He said after the match, the only thing I had was Lamela. He said, Lamela hasn't trained for 2 weeks. He said, I put him on. He's the only thing I had. But there was a half hour to go.
Yeah.
And he takes Dele Alli off.
Yeah.
And then he leaves Dele Alli on the bench.
Yes.
On Saturday. And Dele Alli, as we know, is a very, very good player. But it was as if he had nothing. He said, I had no bullets, I had no guns, I had no bullets to do anything. No, so what he's saying all the time is, we couldn't do any better than we did with what I have.
Yeah.
Which is nonsense.
Yeah, well, it's hardly the signal to be sending to your own players anyway.
Yeah, like get out and play and put Dele Alli on. He's the best forward he had. It's things he's done in the past, Eamon. When things are going against him, he can't take any responsibility for it, so he hits out. And I'm sorry to say for Spurs and their supporters, that's what he's doing at the moment.
Yeah. Liam, this was a huge game in London. It's a very... both clubs don't like each other. It's a very tense game anyway. Frank Lampard, of course, was a great player in Mourinho's Chelsea teams. And there's enough spice in that game anyway. And a very good performance. Frank Lampard... Well, first of all, before I ask you about Lampard, Liam, what about Mourinho and these comments? He also, in passing last week, twice mentioned Troy Parrott, young Irish player. He's 18 years of age, very promising player by all accounts. He said he wasn't ready emotionally for these matches. This was in the context of him having no forwards. That approach to a young player, I would say better keep your mouth shut, would you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be more tactful what you say,
Yeah.
Say, well, he's an interesting boy. We're going to be looking at him, so forth. Keeps the kid's confidence up.
Yeah.
Make him believe that he has a future at the club. Like if you were Troy Parrott or his representatives or his family, you'd be saying, God, we better get away from this place if he's the manager. But his track record with young players is abysmal. It's terrible.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Despite what he says, he's not really brought on any young players ever. Whether he was at Chelsea or whether he was at Man United or he was at Real Madrid or Inter Milan.
Yes,
that's not his thing. I think he's in trouble. I think he's in trouble with the Spurs supporters. I would agree with John. Coming out with all these things is just to protect himself. It's always been about him.
Yes.
And the last two games, it's been interesting. The game is played differently to the way Mourinho plays it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
He wanted to park the bus on and maybe hope for a counter-attack against Chelsea at the weekend, where you contrast that to the way Chelsea went about in taking the game to Spurs, and how Leipzig did the same
Yes.
at Tottenham Stadium on Wednesday with this young, up and coming coach Nagelsmann,
Yes.
who's got Leipzig second in the Bundesliga, and really Tottenham got off lightly against Leipzig. It could have been 2 or 3. So if you're a Spurs supporter, Eamon, and you're hearing the manager making excuses, and then he's not exactly helping the players who are going to be playing, because he's saying, well, I haven't got him, and I haven't got Harry Kane, and I haven't got Song, and I haven't got Sissoko, so I'm having to make do with what I'm left with. Well, if you're one of those players you're left with, he's left with, you're not going to feel very good about what he's saying publicly. I think his time has gone. I felt that at Manchester United. He's losing the plot. It's all about him and nobody else. Yeah,
John, we had a conversation, you and I, over the weekend, and about him. He doesn't even look great. He looks sort of sulky and thin, and there's no aura of him as there used to be. But just to go back to the Troy Parrott, a young Irish player of immense promise. And as Liam said there, when you're 18 and you're in with a big club like that, with a big manager, with a big reputation, anything he says is going to be in your head, isn't it? What's wrong with me? Why am I not ready? And you don't really need to be planting those seeds in a promising young player's mind to serve yourself.
No, you want to be encouraging him, Eamon. Yeah. You want to be saying things in the paper, say, this lad is a terrific player, he's a great promise, he might be a little bit young yet, but, we've great future in front of him, and, and again, why not put him in? We're so short of players, Eamon, and I haven't seen the lad play, but apparently he's an outstanding prospect.
He is, yeah.
Put him in anyway. If things are that bad, and he's no bullets, and he's no guns, well, put this kid in, and see what he can do, and you wouldn't be expecting too much of him. But you don't know how he's affecting the lad, Eamon. Young players, as we know, we're all young players at one time, they're very sensitive to situations like this.
Yeah.
That if they feel that, I've got a chance here, it does boost you up. If you think, oh, God, the manager's running me down before I even have a chance, it's just stupid stuff. But again, Lima said it, I think you agree with it, I agree with it. It's all about himself. He's protecting himself all the time. Mourinho. Yeah.
And I mean, at his start at Spurs was promising enough. He's got them into contention for a Champions League place, but that took a knock on Saturday. John, just to talk about Frank Lampard for a moment, I've been hugely impressed since he became a coach at Derby County. I thought he did a really good job, and I think he's doing a really good job at Chelsea, although before that result on Saturday, I think they'd 1 win in 6, and the pressure was coming on him. He's had no money to spend. He hasn't been afraid to play the young players that he's got. He hasn't been able to buy in the transfer window. And as Liam said there, they do play the game. They pass, they move, they want to get forward, they pass forward all the time. He's improved 1 or 2 of their players as well, particularly Kovacic, who I think we both like, but he was never quite as daring and as forward-looking as he is now. So I think I like Frank. I think he's done a good job, and he conducts himself very well at post-match and pre-match.
He's been very impressive, Eamon, since he's taken. Well, he did a good job at Derby, as we know. But he doesn't do all this nonsense. It's not about him all the time.
Or mind games and any bullshit.
Yeah, there's no bullshit with him. I don't think so. Anytime I've heard him, he talks sense. He's very level-headed in, if he plays well, he says he plays well. If he don't play well, he says he plays well. So he's made a very, very good start. Again, under difficult circumstances, Eamon.
Yeah.
He hasn't been given any money. He was in the paper there a couple of weeks ago complaining about it, which he's entitled to do. But I think he's done a very good job, and he's setting the grounds, I think, or the foundations to be very, very good.
Yeah, Liam, he was a terrific player, Lampard. His father, Frank, played for West Ham in my time, and he's also related, I think, by marriage to Harry Redknapp. So he comes from good footballing stock, and I think he's made a promising start. Do you?
Absolutely, yeah. As you said, and John has said, he conducts himself well. He says the right things. It's not about him; it's about the players. I think he's shown that he's not frightened to leave people out. He's left the goalkeeper out, who cost an awful lot of money because he was making so many mistakes. And he got his team selection right on Saturday when he matched up, to what he thought Mourinho was going to do. And that was quite obvious to everybody. He was going to sit back and hope for a counter attack. Good footballing family. He was a very dedicated footballer. I don't think he was the most, blessed with ability, but he got the best out of himself, and I think that's going to be a reflection of his management, of his management style. He's going to push these players to get the best they possibly can out of themselves and won't be frightened to make tough decisions. It's interesting, though, what's going to happen with Abramovich and going forward, or whether he's going to show the level of interest that he used to show. It doesn't look like that at the moment. And Chelsea, that was a big result for them with the Champions League in mind. But I don't feel as if they're going to be a club that's going to challenge Man City and Liverpool at the top unless Abramovich changes his attitude at present.
And opens the checkbook. I'd just like to talk to you both.
Yeah, Abramovich has got an ongoing situation with the British government, and he's not happy that he didn't get a visa to come to live in England and so forth. And I think this is all part of what's going on with Chelsea Football Club as well.
Yes, he's restricted to, he's become an Israeli citizen and he's restricted to 6-month visas. Olivier Giroud, Liam, is a player you know very well. He was at Arsenal. I felt Frank should have played him a lot more than he has played him. He brought him on against Manchester United during the week, a game they lost, and it was a bad defeat. Giroud scored a goal subsequently ruled out by VAR. He scored again, first goal on Saturday. He's an interesting player. He's a World Cup winner. Like Paul Pogba and Hugo Lloris. How France won the World Cup with those three guys in it, I don't know. But he's a useful player, Liam.
Yeah, he is. And I think he showed that in the World Cup. Although he didn't score a goal in France. In the World Cup, he didn't score a goal, and France ended up winning it because he's a focal point. He's a target man. He takes the pressure off, the people up front, the smaller guys who can work in and around them. And I think that's what Lampard saw on Saturday was going to happen. He needed a strong guy up there because, simply he knew that Mourinho was going to crowd the defence out.
Yes.
And he's useful in the air. It was an absolutely brilliant goal he scored. I did think Vertonghen was slightly at fault for turning his back. You don't want the defender trying to get out of the way of a shot.
Yeah, Vertonghen can leave at the end of the season, and by all accounts intends to leave. So I don't think he's going to spill blood for the special.
Well, you would be disappointed in how he defended, and then going back to Mourinho's coming out and he's praising the players. I can't get any more out of them. They're doing well. Alderweireld was terrible, and so was Vertonghen. Yeah. I thought at the weekend. Yeah. But going back to Giroud, a decent player, Eamon. In your parlance, a good player, not a great player.
Yeah, John, Giroud did well. They needed that goal, and Frank needed a bit of presence up front. I like him. But it is amazing that he's got a World Cup winners medal. Hugo Lloris, the Tottenham goalkeeper, has a World Cup medal. And Paul Pogba, formerly of Manchester United, now living in Dubai, he's got a World Cup winners medal. It makes you think Didier Deschamps, the French coach, is a genius.
Well, he did well, Eamon. The whole team did well in that particular tournament. And it only lasted a certain period of time, as we know, Eamon. But, he's I think Giroud's always been a good player. He's never going to be a goal scorer. He's not going to be
prolific,
hat-tricks and that. But he does a good job as a target man alone. He's worth his place in the Chelsea team. And if we can get a few goals as well, I'm talking about the Chelsea team as Frank Lampard has them at the moment.
Yeah, they're a bit lightweight up front.
They weren't scoring goals anyway.
Okay, now we had in that game, John, the first of the weekend's VAR incidents, video assistant referee incidents. It was a horror tackle by Lo Celso, the Spurs midfield player and a useful player, on Azpilicueta. I think everyone in the ground, except the referee, could see it. And then they went to VAR. VAR said there was no sending off offence. And
no booking even. And subsequently, they admitted they were wrong. There was outrage, I think, everywhere. Anyone who knew anything about football, who saw that tackle, would know it was a sending off offence because he nearly broke Azpilicueta's leg. It was a dreadful tackle, Eamon. I mean, they did admit afterwards that they made a mistake.
Yes.
But they shouldn't be making mistakes like that. I think Frank Lampard said after the game, no, he said, that's enough. I said, I can't have that. He said, it's unacceptable, which it is. Now, how they came to the conclusion, Eamon, is a mystery to me. I think it's a mystery to everybody. And I think the person responsible is a fellow called David Coote.
He was, yeah.
And he made the decision. You see, what we've got to find out is who is responsible for making these decisions. I can see by the referee. I don't think he had a clear look at it, Eamon. But what's wrong with just getting him to have a look at the side of the pitch and let him make the decision?
Yes, absolutely.
Anybody making the decision anyway, I just can't understand it. They did say afterwards they made a mistake, but they shouldn't be making mistakes like that. It was a leg-breaking tackle that was obvious to everybody.
Yeah. So
the decision was dreadful. It's done VAR a lot of harm, more harm again, to have a decision like that in a situation like that. As Frank Lampard said, it's not acceptable.
No, Liam, the referee was Michael Oliver, a young referee, new to the Premier League, 2 or 3 seasons, widely said to be the best referee in the Premier League. I'm not sure about that, who knows. But Mr. Coote, who was in Stockley Park making the decision, has something else on his record. We'll come back to Mr. Coote because that wasn't his only boob. But it's hard to understand the reasoning that allowed this was not even a bookable offence, never mind the sending off defence.
Well, you see, this is what's gone wrong with VAR. It's not actually the technology that's ruining the game or spoiling some games at the moment. It's the interpretation of what they're watching by the various people in Stockley Park, as you say. And this guy's name is Coote. Well, he must have been as pissed as a coot not to see what everybody else could see, that it was an over-the-top tackle, very, very dangerous tackle. And all he had to do, even if he was incapable of making a decision himself, was ask Oliver to go to as John says, to go to the sideline, have a look at it, see it in slow motion, because you can see his intent in slow motion. He wasn't going for the ball. He was going over the top, and it would have been a red card. And this is what's going wrong. It's these people who are calling the shots. Like some of the decisions we see with handball and things like that. I mean, it's their interpretation. And again, I will say that we need to hear what's going on. You know, we need to hear why he didn't deem that a red card. But I think they're so frightened of protecting themselves, these referees, that they don't want that, because it would expose them to what we could hear and how they arrive at certain decisions. And it would really, I think, reveal how inept they are.
Yes. And now we are clear about, and I agree with you, and I think John agrees with, John agrees, first of all, that the referee should go to the touchline and satisfy himself, and he should make the final decision. That's the way it works in the NFL, for example. The other point you make, Liam, is about what's going on in the stadium. The fans should be able to listen to the conversation and see on a screen the issue concerned and the tackle or offside or handball or whatever it is. Those two things would help. But we still don't know who, if the referee went to the touchline, would he make the final decision? At the moment, Mr. Coote made the final decision. So we're in sort of, John, we're in a curious place here. We don't actually know, and three of us are watching very carefully, who's responsible at the end of each incident for the final decision.
Well, first of all, I mean, we should know. That should be a basic thing when they're introducing a situation like this, which is new rules to the game. We all should know. It should be very, very clear. As you say, I don't know. The guy we talk about, Saturday Coote, he obviously made the decision because the referee wasn't called to the side of the pitch to have a look. I think the rule should be that if there's an incident where there's any controversy, the referee should be called to the side of the pitch to say, did you see this? To make sure, because referees, I mean, as we've seen, the referee didn't give the free kick. Or you know what I mean? The referee...
he didn't see the foul.
Yeah, foul. But
do you think, John, can I come in there? Do you think there's an element of the guy in Stockley Park trying to protect the referee and his decisions? Trying to give him some support? Because Oliver didn't give a red card. Oliver didn't even give a yellow card.
I'm sorry, Liam, just to interrupt you there. I don't think Oliver, looking at the thing, I don't think Oliver actually saw the incident.
I know, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, is the guy in Stockley Park saying, okay, well, I better back up Oliver here.
Yes.
I better,
well, they could well be.
Support.
Yes.
I think there's elements of that going on. I think there's elements of that going on. Because you know what the referees are like, John. They stick together. They don't like to be proved wrong. They all want to support one another, and I think there's an element of that going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think.
Sorry, Eamon. Just to go back to our day. Well, my day playing. Our day playing. Eamon. The referees. We didn't have VAR then. They never liked to be proven wrong in anything.
No.
And I agree there would be an element, certainly an element in that the referees don't want to be proven wrong. They're all referees together. But what we have to find out who is actually responsible for the final decision.
Yes.
We still don't know.
We don't really.
Obviously, the referee on Saturday wasn't responsible for the final decision. It was Coote who was sitting up in the box.
Yeah. Okay, let's stick with Mr. Coote because having had a bit of lunch after the Chelsea Spurs match, he put his feet up for the afternoon and he was back on duty for the 5:30 game between Leicester and Manchester City, Mr. Coote. And in that game, he turned down a penalty appeal that Leicester had when Kevin De Bruyne was in the wall, in a City wall. Leicester had a free kick. Kevin De Bruyne put his hands up. He handled the ball while kind of half defending his face, and it went to VAR, and Mr. Coote decided no penalty. 15 minutes later, in a similar situation, City were attacking Leicester around the Leicester box. Dennis Pratt came to block a shot, put his elbow up, to protect his face, penalty, which Sergio Aguero missed. Now, Liam, how can the De Bruyne incident, if you saw it, not be a penalty? And Pratt...
absolutely no. There's no need to even comment on it, Eamon. It was an absolute stonewall penalty. He should have been thinking, I'm going to head this ball away here. I'm going to let it hit the top of my head or something like that. But he put his hands up to protect his face. And it's an absolute stonewall penalty. Yeah. All I can say about this guy, Coote, is that he probably won't be in the position to make decisions again. I think they'll bin him.
Okay.
I think he's. I think he's damaged the reputation of the whole system over the weekend, and I think he'll be binned.
Okay, John. I think
that. Sorry, Eamon, go on.
Yeah, I just said these guys don't bin fellas who make mistakes. They promote them. But go on anyway.
Yeah, well, obviously, Liam agrees. I agree. You agree.
You saw the two. We were talking actually during the Leicester City game. You saw it.
It was madness. Yeah, because when De Bruyne was in the wall, when you're in the wall as a player, Eamon, as we know, you don't. You hold your ground in the wall, and if the ball is going to hit your head, then you have an opportunity to head it away, or if it has to hit your head, it has to hit your head. What De Bruyne did, he jumped out of the way and put his hands up and handled the ball. It was a definite penalty.
Yes.
But apparently Coote, the referee that we're talking about, Eamon, is not an experienced referee.
No, I've never heard of him before.
No, like in other words, if they're going to have, and we've got to find out and be told who is responsible for making the decision. They should, if the man up with the machine is making a decision, he should be the top referee.
Right.
He should be the most experienced referee you can have in that particular match.
Absolutely.
Not Mr. Coote, who is not an experienced referee. In other words, if he's responsible for decisions, you have to have the best referee that's available in all the matches to make those important decisions. That's the first thing they should do, and that's what we should know about. Yeah. So they're doing it arseways, as we call it. Yeah, but I think if you're in the wall, first of all, they have guys in the wall. I wasn't in many walls because I wasn't big enough. No. I don't think you were big enough to be in many walls. But anyway, I think if the wall is a wall and the wall stays where it is when the ball is hit, Eamon, and you have 12 yards notice, even if it's coming for your head, Eamon.
Yes.
In other words, you can't have people jumping. Don't forget, De Bruyne jumped out of the way almost before the ball was hit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So a wall is a wall. A wall holds its ground until the kick has been taken, and if it hits you, it hits you. That's what a wall is for.
Well, and John, the way the rules are at the moment, it's easy to get handballs now. You mustn't move your arms. You must keep your arms by your side. If you open or extend your arms and the ball hits it accidentally, referees are given penalties. That's why he couldn't understand with the movement of De Bruyne's hands. Both arms came up to protect his face, and they hit him straight. The ball hits him straight on the arm, and it's ridiculous. This guy, I think he will be binned. Eamon said he will be protected, but I don't think. I think they'll hang him out to dry, to be quite honest.
Yeah, but
Eamon, in the old days too, when you were in the wall, actually lads used to hook their arms around each other.
Yeah.
In the wall.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? In other words, the wall does not move. It's a wall. Yeah. The wall doesn't collapse.
No.
So if it's going to hit you on the head, it's going to hit you on the head. But you don't get your hands up. The last thing you do is get your hands up.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer. First of all, Manchester City. If I was the manager, I'd be worried. I'd be onto them for breaking the wall. Anyway, the ball not supposed to break at all.
No.
So it's a definite penalty. Ultimately, it's a definite penalty. We go back to Mr. Coote. We don't know him. So it can be cured if it's done in the right way. As you say, people should be, the supporters should be made aware of what's happening.
Yes.
They should have the best referees in the making the decision, whoever's making the decisions, to do it. It is curable, Eamon, and it should be just common sense to do it.
Okay, just one other incident I'll refer you. You may or may not have seen it. Bournemouth are in relegation trouble, and Eddie Howe, the coach there, has done such a fantastic job, but they're really in trouble now. The fifth from bottom of the table. They went to Burnley, and they were victims as well. Philip Billings, one of their players, he turned his back on a corner. The ball hit his shoulder. Referee gave a penalty, which was a terrible injustice. This was VAR again, making a serious mistake. Then Burnley cleared the ball off their line, out of their 6-yard box, went the length of the pitch, scored what they thought was an equalising goal, and it was pulled back all the way back. So instead to their own 6-yard box, where it was a 50-50 call, but let's say it did hit the Bournemouth defenders somewhere the junction between his arm and his shoulder. Anyway, from being 1-1, Burnley got a penalty. They were 2-0 down, and that was another mess. Now, we can't go on, obviously, in the game with these kind of messes. It's just, it's interesting to get your view and Liam's view of what needs to be done. I think we all agree, first, the referee should make the final decision, and if it needs him, as in the case of that terrible tackle, to go to a pitch side monitor and look, he should do so.
Yes.
Secondly, we all agree, I think, that the fans in the stadium need to be informed what the issues are, because this can go on for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes even, and people don't know whether to celebrate or whether to be unhappy if their team's on the wrong end of a decision. So we know what needs to be done. Let's just wait and see what happens when they get round to doing something. Now,
I'm sorry, Eamon. It's just a question of putting it right, Eamon.
Yes.
You know, like we've talked about this morning. First of all, who's going to take responsibility? That's a big one.
Yes.
Right. That's not a big deal. That should be easily done. You're talking about the Burnley situation, where there was a possible handball, and now they could stop that farce, Eamon, by if the guy upstairs, right, thinks there's a possible handball in that situation, he should stop the attack, Eamon.
Yeah.
Stop it then and then. It shouldn't have to go up to Burnley scoring a goal.
Absolutely.
Of course, that makes it worse, because they scored a goal and then you have to come back. It's ridiculous.
No,
but it doesn't have to be ridiculous, Eamon.
No, it doesn't.
If they do it properly, it doesn't. VAR, I think VAR is here to stay. I think it's very good. It's and even Salim said it's the interpretation of VAR that's the problem, not VAR itself, Eamon. But the things that we're talking about today, even among ourselves there, it's common sense stuff that should easily be put right.
Yeah.
Easily put right.
No, absolutely easy, but then there's been lots of things and injustices and inanities in football that have existed since the beginning of time that haven't been put right. Just let's move on to Manchester United. Now, on this podcast, lads, and in my own columns for the Star, I have been critical of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think I've said that, he doesn't look up to the job. Yet they went to Chelsea, won 2-0 during the week. A very, very good performance on Monday night. They've been to City. They've beaten Manchester City twice in the last few weeks. They are now 5th in the table. They're just 3 points behind Chelsea. And yesterday they had a good win at home to Watford. So have we... Well, I fess up first. I think in all the circumstances, we've been a little bit... I've been a little bit dismissive of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and in the circumstances that he's had to face, he's actually done better than Mourinho or Van Gaal, who were there before him. I'll put that to you first, Liam. They won yesterday, and this new player they've got from Portugal, from Sporting Lisbon, Bruno Fernandes, scored a penalty. Saw him at Chelsea, looked a decent player. I'd be interested, first of all, in what you think about Solskjaer's achievement.
Well, I think he deserves to stay till the end of the season, Eamon. I think he's done very well with the young players. He's had his injury problems. He's yet to sort out the defence. I think that's an area where they really have to address in the transfer market if things are going to really improve at United. I do think Bruno Fernandes is a good buy. He looks as if he has vision. He can pass the ball well. He can deliver the ball well at free kicks. He can score goals at free kicks. He's a good, dead ball specialist.
Yes.
I think he's going to make a big contribution there. And go back to Solskjaer with the young players. I think he's done very, very well. And if he turns things around enough to get into the top 4, and he's on the verge of things now. If they carry on with this good run, he could easily be in the top 4 in the next few weeks, and manages to stay there. I think he probably will keep his job.
Yes.
Now, whether he's got the gravitas and the experience to take Manchester United to trophies or not, I think there is a question mark. There is no doubt about that.
Yes.
But, they've tried two proven managers in Mourinho and Van Gaal, and both turned out to be failures. It must be a very, very difficult place to make a call if you're in the boardroom at Manchester United on what they should do and shouldn't do. It's you're kind of scratching your head from week to week, Aaron.
Yeah, John, that's really true, isn't it? I mean, at times they've looked inept against weaker teams very often, but at times they've produced impressive performances. I mean, Marcus Rashford is out probably for the season. And first, let me ask you about Fernandes. We were talking to each other during the Chelsea game, John, which was the first time we'd had a proper look at him. He's not a playmaker. He's not a guy who's going to be on the ball all the time. But as Liam said, he's technically very good. He looks like a confident guy. He sees a pass. And yesterday he scored a penalty yesterday, but apparently it was a good all-round performance. I mean, ridiculous comparisons with Paul Scholes being made in the papers, which we just leave to one side, except to mention that that's how the hype machine works. He looked a useful player, John.
He looked useful, Eamon. I mean, I didn't see the match yesterday where he played. I didn't see him play yesterday. But what I read in the papers this morning wasn't the same player I saw for the 2 or 3 matches that I saw him.
Yeah,
Eamon.
Yeah.
I thought he. Now he's only a new lad, and I don't want to be too harsh on him at all. But I don't see him as a midfield player at all. I think he's a player that starts in midfield. Anytime I saw him, he was up in front of the ball, and I thought he was a player. Well, he'll get a few goals from midfield. But he's no Paul Scholes. No. Nowhere near him. He didn't even strike me as a midfield player.
No, he's kind of drifts into forward positions. And I think what you said to me last Monday night, we were watching the Man U Chelsea game. You said this guy will get goals. And he's a useful player. And as you said, what Liam said, actually, he can pick out a pass and he's got the good technique to deliver it.
Yeah, he has that, Eamon. But what's he going to? What are Manchester United looking for? I mean, I see Solskjaer saying this morning that he reminded him of Paul Scholes, and a few people said the same thing.
Yep.
He's nowhere near Paul Scholes. I mean, Paul Scholes was a genuine midfield player who could also score goals, but he was the complete midfield player. And again, I don't want to be too harsh on this lad, but I'm only going on what I saw, which is he doesn't actually play and be a general in midfield at all.
Yeah.
He'd be a goal-scoring midfield player if he's anything.
Yeah.
Of course, he's got technique and he can deliver the ball from A to B, and that's fine enough. But is he going to influence the game in the middle of the field? Because he's supposed to be a midfield player.
Yeah.
Now, if he's going to score goals, then he's a different type of player altogether. But he's certainly not a midfield player as I understand a midfield player to be.
Yep, I agree with that in terms of insofar as I've seen him, Liam. That's a kind of problem with Solskjaer, really. We all have, respect for him as he was a player. He's in a very, very difficult job, in a very difficult position where he hasn't been able to spend money. At the same time, he doesn't do himself any favours or Fernandes any favours by actually mentioning him in the same sentence as Paul Scholes.
No, well, I agree with John. He's not what we would call a proper midfield player. He's one that maybe a bit like Lampard was.
Yes.
We talked about Frank Lampard. He gets in and around the box. He has a good shot on him, can score goals from free kicks, and he definitely will add to what Manchester United have got. But look, Paul Scholes, Roy Keane, Patrick Vieira, nobody's really replaced them anywhere.
No.
They were very, very special players, and not many teams have the like of those players. Probably the best player, proper midfield player we've seen in the last 10 years is Modric. Who's at Real Madrid. We all a great fan of him, or maybe Pirlo, the great Italian midfield player. But I haven't seen, since those two guys, I haven't really seen a midfield player of that quality, But to go back to Manchester United, they're in 5th position now. They've overtaken Spurs. If Man City's ban is kept, or if they stick to it, 5th could get you into the Champions League. They're only 3, maybe 4 points behind Chelsea.
Yeah.
And they're on a run. I think if Solskjaer, I know John has said that he would have changed them a while ago, and I'm sitting on the fence in many ways. I'm scratching my head from week to week, as I said. But he has done well with the young players. The team, I think, has improved. He's getting a bit of a tune out of Martial. That was a great header he got against Chelsea.
Yes.
So all in all, I think if he gets them into the Champions League top 4, then he keeps his job. That's the way I'd be looking at it.
Yeah, and I have to say,
I wouldn't keep him, Eamon.
No, I know you would. Okay, I think that's fair enough. I think actually Mason Greenwood came in and scored a goal. Yeah, I think he's a really outstanding young player. What I like about Solskjaer, John, is this: he's not afraid. This kid Mason Greenwood is young. There's young lad called Phillips as well. Williams, rather, the left back, yes, who's a really good player, I think. He's straight out of the youth team, in he goes. He's left him in there for a long time. And I have to say about Martial, he scored 4 goals in the last 3 games. I don't really rate him, but he's getting a tune out of him. And I think he's in.
Well, I'm in a question here. Do you think Troy Parrott, if he was at Manchester United, would have had a game by now or a few games? Yeah,
well, that's a very, very good question. It's a very interesting question too. But it does show the courage. He has shown courage, Solskjaer, and courage is a great quality.
I don't think he had any choice, Eamon. I think he had to go down that route. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And John will probably be proved right in the end. He probably won't be able. He won't have the experience and the know-how to bring Manchester United back to what they once were.
Yeah,
that may be proved right. But I'm just saying what the boardroom might be thinking. Wow, he's done well with the young players. He's got us into the top 4. Yeah. Let's keep him for another year.
Yeah. And I think that's, I think I was sort of saying a mea culpa to him because I've been critical of him. And when you look at all the things he has to confront, he has shown a degree of, if you like, resilience. He's not afraid. He hasn't bottled it.
And I think he has to do it, Em. I'm not taking anything away from him. I look at him now and see, yeah, of course he's won a few matches. And we're putting the bar very low at the moment for Manchester United, Eamon. Yeah. And when you go back to the summer, and they have brought some good players in, was he responsible for that? I don't think he was. In other words, I don't think they have bought good players. The few players they bought have been very, very good. But has he been responsible for that? I mean, has the stature, Eamon, that you'd expect a Manchester United manager to have? Yeah, I don't think so.
No, I think that's a good question. There's a question mark about his authority, should we say. Manchester United is a big, big, big club in the world, and maybe you need a figure with great authority there. The point I was kind of making, I think Liam is back, and I'm sure you will too. We've had Van Gaal, a much respected and decorated coach. We had Mourinho fail there, both of them. And now Solskjaer is doing, what should we say, he's doing okay, and he may get them into the top 4. And that is a positive that we should acknowledge.
I will acknowledge that, Eamon. But you would expect that from Manchester United. Do you know what I mean? I think the bar is very low, setting the bar very low to say, well, if, City don't qualify or they're knocked out, then United could get into the top 4. Of course they have some young players, and of course they will have times when they win matches. They should be better than most of the other teams that they play. But I'm just talking about the overall situation at Manchester United. There's no doubt, and I agree, Van Gaal has failed, and so has Mourinho failed. In what they tried to do. But that doesn't mean you stop looking for the experienced manager to do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Manchester United is a huge club, as we know, and they need a huge manager, in my opinion. I don't think, for example, that the players that they bought in the summer, that Solskjaer bought them, I think he's thought, okay, that's what you do. And I like so. I think he's a good lad, not Eamon. But you're looking at Manchester United, where you're looking for, what they're looking for really is a young Ferguson. There's not many of them around. There's hardly any of them around now. But that's what Manchester United need. I don't think they have a young Ferguson at the moment to take them where they need to go.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out, finally, on this very interesting conversation, that when Alex Ferguson went there, it took him 3 years to get something. And Alex Ferguson had transformed Scottish football. He'd made Aberdeen players. He broke the duopoly of Celtic and Rangers, and he'd taken Aberdeen to win the European Cup Winners' Cup, beating Real Madrid in the final, which in the context of what Aberdeen had been and Scottish football had been was a phenomenal achievement. So he went there as a made-to-measure coach, and all of that is worth pointing out. I'd just like to thank both of you, Liam Brady and John Giles. John with all his gravitas, and Liam with, as the Irish Times says this morning, his steely perception. I apparently was just the yobbo in the corner. Thanks very much for joining us, lads. I don't hear any dissent there. Thanks to John and thanks to Liam.
No, that's not true. I mean, no, it's very.
Where's Liam? Is he gone?
Unfair. It's very unfair.
Okay, thanks, guys.